Hi, Cordell Riley, President of Tortal Training. Pleasure to be with you today. Welcome to Breakthrough Ideas in Training. Delighted that you take some time to join us. It's also my pleasure to welcome to the session Patrick Heidrich. Patrick is the President and owner of Sandler Training here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Patrick, welcome to the session.
Thanks, Cordell. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good deal, good deal. So Patrick, Sandler Training, obviously we see your shirt there, and I'm sure that many people obviously know the name. But certainly tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at Sandler, and also just your take on training, how important training is to you.
Sure. No, I'd love to. Just real quickly, myself is my previous career as a technology guy, as a computer programmer. And so I was that guy writing code, but I was also that guy that had to do the training when the software was being developed to the end user. So I always had, I guess, a gift or a knack to want to naturally be a trainer. And then I went through one of those midlife career crises when I was about 42, 43. And I was like, what do I want to do for a living? And that's when I was introduced to Sandler Training.
Right.
And I was always, a business owner in the technology side and stuff. So I thought it was a really good fit because I really love growing people, and that's basically bottom line is what we do at Sandler Training is growing people. So I bought the Sandler Training, I don't know if you're aware, it's a franchise organization, about 250 of us globally, and I bought this franchise here in the greater Charlotte area about 13 years ago now, and had to start from scratch, grow the business, do those prospecting calls at selling, but basically, the core of our business is developing leaders, salespeople, and customer service staff.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Patrick, I heard you say something there that, throughout your career, you had a knack for developing people and just kind of, I won't say fell into training, but you kind of had that knack and you found a way to kind of hone it is kind of what I thought I heard in some of that background there.
Yes. Yeah. I think people always kind of, one thing they want to figure out is, what do they want to do? What's their passion? And I just really do enjoying growing people, I guess, is the best way to look at it. And so certainly in my search for an organization of a business, because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, that's what really attracted me to Sandler Training. And then certainly just the concept of businesses utilizing our services to develop their people, in essence, to help them be more profitable and stuff. And that's what really attracted me to it.
Good deal, good deal. Patrick, I know that one of the things you had shared with us as we were getting ready for the session, you talked about growing leaders and leadership and things of that nature. I know you had an interesting topic as it relates to leadership, and I'm going to make sure I read this right here. It says, a culture of transparency and accountability, why this fails and what you can do about it. So transparency, accountability. Talk a little bit more about that, Patrick.
Yeah, I guess the best way to look at is, and we could look in the professional sports world. Jason, you and I were talking about the Carolina Panthers, and really any professional sports in order to develop and grow. And these are the best athletes in the world, yet they're very focused on certainly training and personal professional development. And really, that's the culture of those organizations. There's cameras everywhere, right? These guys cannot perform without being videotaped. And certainly they're doing a lot of practice and training, probably 100 times to every game minute they play, probably even more than that.
Yeah.
And that's their culture. And it's interesting when I work with businesses and I talk to them about their culture and training and personal and professional development, sometimes their people are a little resistant to that training and that development. And a lot of times I find the reason for that is the leaders have not done a good job of creating a culture of professional and personal development.
Okay, well, so I love the sports analogy. I'm a huge sports fan, Patrick, and yes, Carolina Panthers is one of my favorite teams, so it's a great one. But I had a former mentor of mine, actually still a mentor, great boss that I worked with, and he always drew an analogy, talked about baseball players, and just to follow that, they've been playing and hitting balls from early on, but what do they do every year? They go back to spring training, they work on the basics as part of that culture. So great point there. Patrick, you know that, again, a lot of our people that are on this session are really training people that are trying to make themselves better. And you talked about that culture and leadership really embracing training as part of their organization. And this is our culture. This is how we're going to do it here. This is how we're always going to go back to the basics. What about if somebody on this session really does not have that benefit of their leadership embracing that culture? What would you share with them, and what might they want to do and approach those conversations?
No, that's a great question, Cordell. Um, there's one common language among all leaders, and it's a language of business, specifically the language of profitability.
Hmm.
So, bottom line, it is a business, right?
Yeah.
And we do have to make a profit in order to continue to grow as a business and stay in business.
Yeah.
And so, leaders are going to invest in training if they truly can see a return on the investment in order to be more profitable. And so I would encourage these trainers to do a good job of isolating what are the problems, what are the issues, and so what are the new skills that the staff needs, and then you put in a training program, and more importantly, have that initial conversation with the leaders and get their buy-in that yes, this does make sense, this is going to help us be more profitable. And Cordell, we go back to the sports analogy. After the game, they review the tape.
Yeah.
And they are identifying areas where they need to develop and train. And certainly it's a bottom up thing. So certainly if the people at the lower level are identifying some skill sets that need to be, say, invest in some training to get it done, I'm guessing when they go to the ownership group and say, these new skill sets will help us win the Super Bowl, help us win more games, I think we get a return on this investment. They're
Yeah.
going to get buy-in
Yeah.
from the owners. So
Yeah.
have that conversation of profitability, identify the areas they need to grow, expend the resources, and start developing the people.
Yeah. Patrick, it probably what I heard from that, let me just say it again to make sure I kind of got it right. It's really not just training for the sake of training, but how is it going to drive the business forward? How is it going to lead to profitability, whatever those key metrics are that they're trying to move. So link it to what the business is really trying to do.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then also the trainers in your organizations, certainly a big frustration, we'll hear from business owners is that investing in training is a waste of money.
Hmm. Wow.
They might send their sales staff out to a 3-day training session and expect change to happen. Change isn't going to happen. They'll come back excited, but you and I know, you guys are in the training business. You understand the importance of ongoing reinforced training. And so to the trainers out there in organizations is don't pull any punches. Tell the owners that, if we do this impact training where we fire hose into their head,
Yeah.
yeah, they're going to get excited. But over time, without some reinforcement, put in some of the tools you guys have with, the Turtle training, how are we going to reinforce it going forward to make sure stuff sticks? Because if we go back to the professional analogies, they reinforce their skill set every single day. And I challenge business owners, are you reinforcing the skill sets, practicing every single day?
Yeah, Pastor, that's great. That's from what I know about Sandler. That's kind of how Sandler goes about delivering some of his training. Is that continuous, ongoing type of approach? Can you expound upon that just a little bit so our group kind of gets some exposure to that?
No, I appreciate that. Our founder, David Sandler, goes way back. He was, on the speaker circuit, right? He'd go do this training, and his frustration was it did not stick. And so that's what moved him to doing the franchise model. He's like, I need to have these training centers of business owners, like myself, that are also professional trainers, so that the local businesses can have a place to go to weekly,
Yeah.
right? To get that ongoing reinforced training so that it sticks, so that people can grow and learn new skill sets. And I guess probably the best analogy to that, Cordell, would be when we all learned to drive a car. We didn't go to a 1-day seminar and that was it. Literally, we are learning new skill sets in our cars that we drive. Don't ever do this, but it's unbelievable. People can text and drive. It's a new skill. They shouldn't do it. We know that. But they reinforce it all the time.
Yeah.
So your driving skills are being reinforced every single day, right? Because we're using those driving skills. And then again, back to the professional sports analogy, of the practice sessions. I mean, I think football's doing some practice now, right?
They are.
Yeah. Right. And so that was Sandler's model, was they put in a franchise model. I think it was about 250 offices globally, so that, like, and if I have an international client, they can find a local Sandler office, right? I can contact that person so they can go someplace to get the ongoing reinforced piece of it to make sure it sticks.
Ongoing, reinforce the kind of the key takeaways that I'm getting from that, Patrick. It's not just, to your point, an event. While that event can inspire and can do a lot of different things, it's really changing the habits and cementing that into the person and those types of things that you're trying to do through that ongoing reinforcement is what I'm hearing.
Yes, you nailed it. Ongoing reinforced, which equals behavior change.
Yeah.
I'm old. It takes a lot of ongoing reinforced to undo my bad habits, to learn new things.
Yeah. Patrick, you gave an example of driving a car. I got two teenagers right now where I'm currently sitting on that passenger seat going through that. So I have a new appreciation for learning how to drive a car right now. So
Yeah.
that's it. We can talk about that one another time. I don't want to bore our audience with that. Patrick, you mentioned something that's interesting I want to come back to. So you talked about when Sandler was starting, obviously wanted to expand the reach and to look for business owners, but you use the term says professional trainers. Professional trainers. What's a professional trainer, Patrick?
It's really twofold. Is certainly I'm a professional trainer, so I invest in myself. I have to keep current with new training tools, tools like Turtle. I mean, the world's changing from a technology standpoint. And then also just, the whole psychology of how people learn new behaviors, what they're thinking in their head. But a professional trainer is investing in themselves as a trainer. And like, I just got back from a Sandler conference. We meet 3 times a year, actually. The global owners, we meet 3 times a year, get together to share best practices, to work on our training skills and the things we're doing. So that's the one aspect of a professional trainer. They're growing as a trainer themselves, bettering themselves. And then I think the other side of it is if you have a trainer, have they walked in the shoes of the people that are sitting in your class?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, like in our world, when I'm teaching sales skills, well, I get to tell my story where I started from scratch and had to make cold calls and grow my business. So not only am I a professional trainer, but I live and breathe the world of the clients I'm teaching. And so, and go back to sports, right? Now, how common is it where some coach has some experience playing that sport? It's becoming more and more commonplace. And so not
Yeah.
only are they a gifted coach, trainer, mentor, but they've walked in the shoes of the people that they're training.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Pat, you said you go 3 times a year. You're getting together for some type of activity to kind of work on. I'm sure you're doing other things, but 3 times a year you're getting up and going somewhere to kind of focus and learn some things yourself.
Yeah, so I mentioned we're a franchise organization.
Yeah.
So, for example, like the franchisor is located in Baltimore, and so twice a year we'll meet in Baltimore, shares best practices. So all the Sandler owners
Yeah.
will attend that, and then once a year we get together and we also invite our clients, and it's called our Sandler Client Summit. So we have all the Sandler owners and then also all the clients get together for a conference, great networking stuff, but also, again, sharing, networking, best practices from a training standpoint, certainly best practices from a leadership and a sales standpoint. But
Super.
yeah, 3 times a year.
Super. Patrick, I want to go back to something you talked about early on. You talked about, trainers really talking to leadership and trying to, grow that culture, that we were going to be a training organization, and talked about linking it back to what the business is trying to do. Who calls you in, Patrick? So if an organization says, hey, we want to engage with Patrick, we want to engage with Sandler, is it the training director? Is it the owner of that business says, I want to do something? Who's typically calling you in, and do they come in and say, we want to be able to look for these types of results once we engage with you from an ongoing perspective? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Be happy to. There's really two things there is The example you mentioned is if I get an incoming call,
Yeah.
right? If my marketing stuff is working and someone's like, hey, we have a training need, so I get an incoming call. Typically when I get an incoming call, it's going to depend on the size of the organization. The smaller the organization, the more likely it is with ownership group. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the larger the organization, the more likely it's going to come in from that human resource or that chief training officer, if you will.
Yeah.
But what's important is eventually, and as quickly as possible, we are going to have a conversation with the ownership group. And it ties into that culture thing, and what I call goal alignment is where I need to understand what's the owners or the ownership group's goals going forward, and what are some of the biggest issues, frustrations, concerns that are getting in the way of them reaching those goals, so that I can work with HR, the training people, but certainly the ownership group as well, to put together, I guess, the correct prescription. I don't want to commit malpractice, right?
Training malpractice.
There you go. We could coin that one.
Yeah.
So certainly I don't want to commit sales malpractice, because in anything I want to understand what are their problems, what are the issues, so we at Sandler can put together a best fit solution. I mean, we need a solution that's customized for that organization to address their needs.
Yeah, Pat, that's a great point, and I think it goes back to that culture and the results that you talked about. And if you just follow the example you gave, that's what our audience could do today. If they're training professionals, and either they're going to engage somebody like you, or they're going to try to do some things internally, but it's asking those questions: What are we trying to do? What are we trying to fix? So, great comments there. Patrick, you've been doing this for quite some time. You've been around it for quite a while. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen taking place in the training space today?
Wow. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, technology. I mean,
Technology.
yeah, it's technology. Now, here's the challenge: is technology is fantastic, but it's not a replacement for what we talked about earlier. So don't think you can use technology to make impact training more effective. It can be good, but make sure you still use the technology for ongoing reinforcement. Now, the exciting part is, like a client of mine, if they can't make a class and they're remotely located somewhere, well, they can, bring up their device, right?
Yeah.
Tablet, phone, whatever, and participate in the training. And in the old days, that wasn't possible because of technology. Wasn't there. And now
Mm-hmm.
that technology has allowed us, I think, to do a better job of continue to do the ongoing reinforced training, right? I mean, the tools you guys have allows companies to use those tools to make sure they're getting the reinforcement training.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they're geographically not there, it's not a problem.
Mm. So Patrick, how does it work in I've gone to a Sandler class before, and I've sat in on the instructor-led portion. But I heard you just mention something. So if somebody can't make a class, what can they do today to complement or supplement what they can't come to in person?
Yeah, it would be, well, two ways. Would be certainly if they can't physically be in my training center, like I have a big training here that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And ideally, as we know, best case, we're in the same room, face to face, interacting, and those kinds of things. And that would be like one leg of the training stool. The other leg would be, they call me, maybe we do some one-on-one coaching over the phone or something. But the third leg is really that reinforcement piece. And so making sure that they are engaging in technology, whether it's, watching videos or going through some online audio, maybe downloading some stuff to their device, listening to it on the plane, filling in some worksheets and stuff, turning that stuff into me so they can use that reinforcement piece. But also, Cordell, if they're not here, just using technology to remotely be here,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So, with the webcams and stuff, remotely be in here.
Good stuff. Great stuff. No, Patrick, technology has definitely expanded what we can all do from a training perspective as well. Like, definitely expanded what we all
Yeah.
have the capabilities of doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Patrick, again, a lot of great training professionals on this phone that are doing what you talked about, taking some time and listening to us today so they can enhance their skills, so they can do a better job when they go back. If you had to leave our groups a couple of big rocks, if you really want to make your training better inside of your organization, what are some big rocks that you'd like to share with our groups that they can take away from what we've talked about here?
Yeah, a couple of big rocks. Here's the first one, and I'm going to reiterate the culture thing. And I'll slowly make a statement here, and it's really powerful, is you want to make sure your organization has a culture where everybody sees everybody else as a resource to reach their personal goals. And those personal goals are in alignment with the company's goals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's the culture you want to make sure you have in place. Now, with that in place, the rock, the nugget is have trainers have a conversation with your ownership group wrapped around profitability. Ask them, what are the biggest frustrations? What are the biggest issues? So you can put together that effective training program that goes right after those gaps. And then the other thing is we want to make sure it sticks, so right, ongoing reinforced. And also, don't be afraid to measure. And that gets back into the culture of transparency and accountability. And if you have people on your team that don't want to be held accountable, maybe they're not a good member for the team. But also, if they don't want to be held accountable, make sure leadership has that culture in place I talked about where everybody sees everybody else as a resource, right? If everybody sees everybody, just quickly in sales, they should want to be held accountable and want to get better so they can sell more, so they can make more commissions, so they can buy that dream house, right? That's an example of an alignment of a personal goal with a business goal. So trainers, you are a critical aspect of your organization. Just look at any professional sports team, okay? You're just as important. Let's start acting like a professional sports team and increase those skills so you guys can be more profitable.
Good deal. Patrick, great information, incredible information. And I love the way you kind of brought those last big rocks home, some great information I'm sure our audience is going to be able to benefit from. So, Patrick, I know you have a special offer that you want to make available to our group here. You want to share that offer or tell them what it is and also how they can go about getting that offer from you?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And actually, it's like that infomercial had that, and there's more. So when we first talked about this, the free offer is you can contact your local training center, and they'll be able to click on a link where they can locate a local Sandler training office. And again, there's 250 globally. And so odds are there's one in your backyard. If there isn't one in your backyard, contact me. I'd be happy to fill in the blanks and work with you one-on-one or have you remotely attend one of my sessions. But they can attend a free session at the local Sandler Training office, maybe wrapped around professional selling skills, could be wrapped around leadership skills. So that's the one offer, is that attending a free training session, and we'll provide the links for that. And the other one is we just recently came out with a new book, and I got it here. We did a collaboration with LinkedIn. We're strategic alliances with LinkedIn, and this is a great book on how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your sales. And there's a lot of great tips in here, and I'll have another link that'll give people the electronic version of this so you can download it in your iPhone, in your Android phone, whatever kind of device, tablet you have, so you can read that ebook. So I'll have both those free offers available for everybody.
Good deal. So, Patrick, not just one offer, you got two offers that you're making available. Love it. Our audience is going to love you. Going to love you. They'll love you.
Well, hey, whatever I can do to help grow the economy for everybody.
Good deal. Good deal. Thank you, my friend. Great information you've shared. Also, I want to thank our audience for joining us here today. I'm sure you found this information very, very helpful. I will certainly encourage you to please continue to come back for additional breakthrough ideas and webinar series. Also, I would encourage you that if you would like to have a download of this session and all of the other sessions that you've seen, there's a link that you can actually click on and get that information. So we'd encourage you to do that also. Patrick, thank you again for joining us today, my friend.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Take care all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.